Chapter 39-31. Yiqing Luo. A man who couldn't satisfy his desires was really scary. Speaking of which, what did Zhu Wuxian tell you? Is there a need to whisper? Zoemo was very curious. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and shook her head. It's still those ridiculous words, don't take it to heart. Huangfu Jintian had a dazed look. Didn't Pavilion Master Zhu specially accompany me back to the Heaven Realm? One person left just like that? Then why was Zhu Wuxian squatting at the treasure gathering so early in the morning? Accompanying is just an excuse. Zhu Wuxian is obviously waiting for little Qing Luo. Zoemo clicked his tongue as his devilish phoenix eyes rose, as he continued to say as though he wished for the world to be in chaos. You are just a springboard. Huangfu Jintian. Was it possible that taking the benevolent route wasn't able to control the youngsters? Yiqing Luo stared at Zoemo, afraid that Zoemo would say something shocking as she hurriedly changed the topic. Old Master Huangfu, when do you intend to leave? Immediately. When Huangfu Jintian said this, the expression on his face had some slight changes. He took a deep look at Pei Sheng and said, all along I wanted to thank you personally. If it wasn't for the fact that you helped that lad, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to see that lad today. He paused slightly and continued, and that day, Pei Sheng suffered an assassination attempt. I will handle it and absolutely will not let Pei Sheng suffer any grievances. She could tell that Huangfu Jintian really couldn't bear to part with Pei Sheng. These 2 days the relationship between the both of them had deepened. Even Pei Sheng was willing to change his way of addressing him as grandfather. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. Huangfu Jintian spoke solemnly, Miss Yi, gathering treasure is Pei Sheng's wish and also his dream, so for the next few days I'll have to trouble you. Saying that, Huangfu Jintian straightened his body as he slowly bowed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand as she stopped Huangfu Jintian. The current Pei Sheng really doesn't need us to worry about him. Just let him grow up on his own. Yes, grandfather, don't worry about me. Pei Sheng went up and held Huangfu Jintian's hand. The both of them exchanged a smile. This heartwarming scene was heartwarming. However, there were also people who were so angry that they gritted their teeth. Yiqing Luo's sharp senses detected a strange fluctuation in the air. She gave him a sidelong glance. He saw 3 figures standing behind the temporarily built withered tree. Huangfu Fengyan was glaring at them with hatred. The fierceness and hatred in his eyes. It was as if it wished to swallow them whole. A powerful aura spread out. Naturally, it attracted the attention of the others. When Huangfu Jintian looked over and saw Huangfu Fengyan's savage and warped face, his face instantly darkened. Evil creature. Huangfu Jintian was unable to restrain his rage and grunted coldly. What are you glaring at? Did I punish you wrongly? Huangfu Fengyan instinctively shrunk her neck when she heard Huangfu Jintian's voice, and she hid behind big brother and third brother. Huangfu Qifei's lips curled into a warm smile. No matter what grandfather does, it's always right. This time's matter is indeed Fengyan's fault. Towards grandfather's punishment, Fengyan doesn't dare to not accept it. Saying that, he lowered his head slightly and looked at Huangfu Fengyan as he appeased her in a warm voice. Fengyan, am I right? Chapter 39-32. Until Huangfu Fengyan was dragged out by Huangfu Qifei. Yiqing Luo then noticed. Huangfu Fengyan's temperament had undergone a huge change. Just 2 days ago when he saw her, she was still arrogant and domineering. It was as if she did not take these people from the earth domain seriously and had a high and mighty attitude. But now, her entire body was shrouded in a layer of deathly aura. There was a deathly aura between his brows. The light in his eyes dimmed a lot. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly as she carefully sized up Huangfu Fengyan. After noticing something, she suddenly laughed out loud. His curved eyebrows were filled with mockery. Huangfu Fengyan's expression instantly darkened. His eyes were filled with uncontrollable resentment. If it wasn't for Huangfu Qifei holding her wrist tightly, she would have died. Perhaps, Huangfu Fengyan almost couldn't control the anger in her heart as she pounced towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see Huangfu Fengyan's madness. His laughter became more and more mocking. He didn't expect the old man to be so ruthless. The old man actually directly crippled more than half of Huangfu Fengyan's profound rank. Yes, most of them. Previously, Huangfu Fengyan's talent was passable, and she had the Huangfu bloodline. Moreover, she had been supported by many resources since she was young. Her profound rank was at least at the 7th or 8th level of the Sage Profound Realm. But, the current Huangfu Fengyan, judging from the fluctuations of the profound waves on her body, I'm afraid he's only hovering around the sky profound realm. In fact, it was even showing signs of slipping. Profound sky. If they were placed in the nirvana realm, they would be the best among the geniuses. However, Huangfu Fengyan was someone from the heaven realm. In the heavenly realm, even the lowly people were like dust. Their strength was probably above Huangfu Fengyan's. To the arrogant Huangfu Fengyan, this move was indeed the cruelest punishment. It was no wonder that Huangfu Fengyan was looking at them as if they were her father's murderer. No, even killing one's own father wouldn't have such a huge grudge. Slut. Looking at Yi Qingluo's ridiculing smile, Huangfu Fengyan was so infuriated that her eyes turned red. She struggled to pounce towards Yi Qingluo. His face was hideous and terrifying. Shut up. Huangfu Jintian berated angrily. Looks like the punishment I gave you isn't enough. You still don't understand etiquette, right? Grandfather. Huangfu Fengyan was angered to the point of tears. Before he could finish, she was forcefully pulled back by Huangfu Qifei. Huangfu Qifei shook his head at her, then said gently, Grandpa, it's getting late, let's return to the heaven realm first. Huangfu Jintian grunted coldly and didn't even want to take another glance at Huangfu Fengyan. He gave Pei Xing a few instructions. Huangfu Jintian led the three of them away from Treasure Gathering Hall. Before leaving, Yi Qingluo noticed that Huangfu Qifei's indistinct vision fell onto her. That gaze made Yi Qingluo feel uncomfortable. In the Huangfu trio, she couldn't see through him at all. It was this Huangfu third young master Huangfu Qifei. Compared to young master Huangfu Dongyu, this third young master was the truly difficult person to deal with. Moreover, it could be seen. Although Huangfu Dongyu was the eldest young master, he still followed Huangfu Qifei's opinion. Earlier, Huangfu Qifei's meaningful gaze, what did it mean? Why, after Zhu Wuxen left, you can't bear to let those few trashes from the Huangfu family leave? Above her head, a man's deep voice floated down, with a smile yet not a smile tone. The sense of danger was extremely thick. All right, a jealous man couldn't be offended. Chapter 39-33. Glancing at the group of people around, it was obvious that they were waiting for a good show. Yi Qingluo's lips curled. Suddenly, she stretched out her arms and hooked onto Diamo Xian's neck, putting all her body weight on the man. She raised her head and looked at Diamo Xian with a smile. The Overlord, are you so unconfident in your own charm? Saying that, her slender fingers had already clasped the man's chin. The smile on the corner of her mouth was like a rogue who teased a good family man. She tilted her head and her voice became gentler. At present, the Overlord's face is my favorite face, and it is also this face that makes me captivated. So captivated that I can't see anyone else. She sighed helplessly and said, Tell me I have you, a little devil. Who else can I not bear to part with? The crowd who were watching the show immediately burst out laughing. One by one they gave a thumbs up, so impressed that they simply couldn't say a word. Yi Qingluo ignored that group of people, hooked onto Diamo Xian's neck and kept swaying her body. Little beauty, do you think? What I said is reasonable. Diamo Xian's eyes became darker and darker. His burning gaze seemed to want to swallow Yi Qingluo. Immediately under Yi Qingluo's gaze, his thin lips curled up, so handsome that it made one's heart skip a beat. In that case, you only fancy my face? The man's voice sounded very deep. Yi Qingluo released his chin and stuffed herself into the man's arms. The corners of her lips curled up. How can you say it in such a superficial way? You originally belonged to me. Diamo Xian's brows rose, but he didn't say another word. Yi Qingluo hugged his waist again. Looks like it's time for you to prove your charm. She moved closer to his ear and whispered these words. It was completely hinting at something. Diamo Xian heard that, his eyes deepened a few notches. He even used that meaningful, seductive peach blossom eyes to stare deeply at her for a while. Yi Qingluo's legs went soft from that gaze. Somehow she felt as if she had consciously jumped into the pit that the man had dug. However, the jealous man was finally appeased. The way the two of them treated the onlookers like air had deeply provoked the crowd. Zoemo was the first to flip the table and leave with Kitty Lee in his arms. Right at this moment, a slender figure walked over from outside the treasure gathering hall. Little Qingwu, I'm telling you, don't ever go in. Go in and be abused. When Zoemo saw the person coming, he immediately complained bitterly. Jun Qingwu glanced at Zoemo indifferently. She ignored him and walked straight into the inner courtyard. The minute Yi Qingluo saw Jun Qingwu, she happily went forward to welcome her. His gaze fell on her hand. Jun Qingwu was holding a letter. Letter? Your letter. Jun Qingwu handed the letter to her. What? Yiqing Luo was puzzled. Who would specially ask Jun Qingwu to send her a letter? Your old acquaintance. Jun Qingwu glanced at the letter. Her meaning was, look at it yourself. You'll know once you read it. Yiqing Luo opened the letter suspiciously. When she saw the name on the letter, her pupils suddenly shrank. Miaoji. It was a letter from Miaoji. The Miao tribe's holy maiden from the Miaogu clan was Miao Yi's aunt. At that time Miaoji had ascended to the earth realm. Miao Yi had inherited the Miao tribe's holy maiden's position. She had not expected that Miao Ji would actually write her a letter. After reading the contents of the letter, she put the letter down. Mo Yuing immediately asked, what did she say? Yiqing Luo was stunned. Mo Yuing had always been someone who didn't put anything to heart. But now she took the initiative to ask about Miao Ji. Chapter 39-34. Zhanhe, did something happen to him? Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly constricted. The goo poison in Long Yunzhan's body was still lingering in his body. At that time he specially sent Miao Yi to the West Continent to help Long Yunzhan resolve the goo. However, Miao Yi could only temporarily suppress the goo poison in Long Yunzhan's body. Old Man Song had even mentioned before. The goo poison in Long Yunzhan's body was not a goo that could be cultivated in the Nirvana realm. This kind of goo worm could only be nurtured by someone with extraordinary strength. To completely cure the goo, he could only go to the upper realm and find someone who understood the art of witchcraft to cure Long Yunzhan. Miao Ji had delivered the letter. It was regarding the poison in Long Yunzhan's body and the problem of meeting her tomorrow. However, after knowing that the letter was written by Miao Ji, Mo Yuing actually took the initiative to ask a question. Yiqing Luo's first reaction was to think of Long Yunzhan. Mo Yuing blinked her empty eyes and shook her head stiffly. No. Yiqing Luo stared intently at Mo Yuing. That expressionless, soulless face was devoid of any other emotions. After a while Yiqing Luo's expression loosened up. Let's go see Miao Ji together tomorrow. Mo Yuing wasn't someone who would lie. She said she was fine. At least before she came to the Earth domain, Long Yunzhan's poison did not flare up again. Mo Yuing nodded vigorously. Yiqing Luo had just kept the letter. He wanted to hug Jun Qingwu and thank her. The arms did not have time to open. Her feet suddenly left the ground. Her whole body fell into a broad embrace. Above her head, a man's low and husky voice floated down. Yet there was a hint of coldness in it. Lil Luo, just woke up not too long ago. She still needs more rest. I'll take her away first. Everyone widened their eyes, wanting to stop him. What did he mean by needing more rest? Obviously, Yiqing Luo had just woken up not long ago. I didn't talk to them for long, okay? However, no one dared to say such words. He could only watch helplessly as Dmo Xian brought Yiqing Luo away in an extremely overbearing manner. Yiqing Luo wrapped her arms around Dmo Xian's neck and felt the cool breeze brushing past her cheeks. But soon she was tightly wrapped in the man's arms. Warmth engulfed her. Yiqing Luo realized something. Her little head curled up in his arms. As soon as he arrived, he entered his room. Yiqing Luo's back fell onto the soft bedding. The man's warm air pressure hit her face. Yiqing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand and blocked Dmo Xian's chest. As soon as he raised his head, he was met with a pair of obsidian eyes that were deep and filled with emotion. Her heart skipped a beat. Her cheeks were also flushed red. Didn't you say that I just woke up and need more rest? What are you doing? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Her fingers caressed the man's brows and gently traced. Dmo Xian narrowed his eyes as he glanced at the fingers that were moving around on his face. His lips curled up devilishly. You're still more adorable when you're lying down. Yiqing Luo. These words, why did it sound so horrifying? Don't make it sound like, I'm a necrophiliac, okay? There was something wrong with this scene. Dmo Xian gave a low chuckle, but there wasn't any mirth in his eyes. You who is lying down, there's only me by your side. His voice was very deep. It was so deep that it made one's heart felt constricted. Yiqing Luo was just about to say something. Chapter 39-35. I don't want to appear so petty. He buried his head in between her neck as his voice was very low and a little fuzzy. But she could hear the gloominess in his tone. Lil Luo, do you feel that my possessiveness is very scary? His voice turned deeper and deeper. I obviously know that there's nothing going on between you and him, but seeing the way he looks at you, the attitude he has towards you, I just want to hold you in my arms, just want you to belong to me alone. The man's voice, word by word, was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly constricted as her eyelashes started to tremble. She stretched out her hands and hooked onto Diamo Xian's neck, hugging him back. I know how you feel. She hugged the man tightly as her eyes turned slightly red. A long time ago I said, I don't hate your possessiveness. You want to own me because you care about me, that's why you want me to belong to you alone. How would she not know? Her Xian had taken care of her feelings. How much pain had he suffered? How many times had she relied on Xian's pampering to do things that made Xian worried? Yiqing Luo cupped his face as a light kiss fell on his face. This kind of possessiveness, I don't find it scary at all because I feel the same. Finally her kiss fell on Diamo Xian's lips. Like a dragonfly touching the water, it moved away. Her hands cupped his face, pressing her forehead against his. Xian, our feelings are the same. Because they loved each other, so they cared, so they wanted to own him. Yiqing Luo buried her head in his chest again as she whispered softly, telling Diamo Xian everything that she had said to Chu Wuxian earlier. Finally she raised her little head, her chin resting on his chest as she gazed at his clean chin. Say, what did he mean by, be careful of the people around you? To sow discord. His hand brushed Yiqing Luo's fine hair as Diamo Xian answered lazily. Yiqing Luo used her head to knock him. We're talking about serious matters, be more serious. Diamo Xian's voice became even fainter, with a trace of indifference. I'm very serious. Although that was the case. But the man's hand had already landed on her waist. His body turned slightly cold. Her robe was scattered on the side of the bed. Yiqing Luo was so angry that she laughed. Her little hand stopped the man. What kind of decency is this? Loosening his robe halfway, Diamo Xian propped himself up and his good-looking face was imprinted right in front of her eyes. Why don't you tell me, how did I become indecent? Yiqing Luo. Why don't you tell me what you're doing now is considered decent? Could he move away from her and say those words with a straight face? Do you have any sense of shame? Lying through your teeth, doesn't your conscience hurt? Diamo Xian expressed, for the woman I love, what is face? What's the use of it? If he came, could he sleep with little Luo? To be able to sleep with Lil Luo, one's conscience would only feel better. Yiqing Luo, she only wanted to understand from Diamo Xian's mouth what the people around Zhu Wuxian meant by that. Couldn't they discuss the problem first before doing anything else? No matter how Yiqing Luo's inner heart rejected, or how her actions resisted. Finally, when the man's kiss landed. Chapter 39-36. By the time Yiqing Luo woke up, it was already the next morning. The man beside her had long disappeared. Yiqing Luo climbed up from the bed, her entire body was sore and limp, almost unable to straighten her back. She simply didn't dare to recall the scene of being indecent treated by the man yesterday. That scene was too terrifying. Just recalling it made her legs wobbly. At this moment she only wanted to use 2 words to describe her feelings. Beast? Wasn't he a beast? The man last night was like a beast who had been trapped for a long time, using all kinds of ways to torment her. He even forced her to stay awake. To put it nicely, she had said it herself. Since she had flirted with someone, she should be responsible. So she had to set an example. After that, he was unbridled, tormenting her. After that, he said that he was magnanimous to let her and Chu Wuxian chat alone, so he must be rewarded. Hence, tormenting again. After that. There was no more after that. She opened her eyes, her entire body was about to fall apart. Her 4 limbs were almost not her own. Yiqing Luo cried out and pounced onto the blanket, not wanting to move at all. But time waited for no one. She still had to attend Miao Ji's appointment today. After struggling for some time, Yiqing Luo scolded Diamo Xian in her heart as she got up from the bed. When she stepped on the ground, Yiqing Luo felt as though she was stepping on cotton, soft and fluffy. But although her body was sore, but she felt refreshed and that place was cool without the pain she had imagined. At least that man still had some conscience. He knew that after tormenting her, he would serve her well. Yiqing Luo snorted. The grievance in her heart had lessened by quite a bit. She hung Diamo Xian specially on the wooden frame with difficulty and let her put on the red robe neatly and washed up. She was finally able to walk normally and do other actions. Yiqing Luo stretched her waist and stretched her muscles before walking out of the room. When she walked out of the courtyard, Yiqing Luo saw Mou Ying and Xiao Yinyan sitting opposite each other on the stone bench. Old Lai was lying sloppily on the rockery with a blade of grass in his mouth. Gui Wu Zoumo and Kitty Li were nowhere to be seen. When Yiqing Luo saw the two of them sitting opposite each other, she was rather astonished. He was very curious. The two of them could actually sit face to face peacefully, and the atmosphere wasn't that tense. Not easy at all. Mo Ying sensed Yiqing Luo's gaze and immediately stood up, walking towards Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo. Her pink body was petite and cute. When he pounced into Yiqing Luo's arms, Yiqing Luo withdrew her arms and gave him a full hug. During this period of time, Yiqing Luo felt a gaze which was as sharp as a blade in front of her. She frowned and looked over. She met Xiao Yinyan's gaze. Xiao Yinyan didn't avoid her gaze. He just stared at her, the hand that was holding Mo Ying's hand. SK, that gaze was a little too much. Before Mo Ying appeared, Xiao Yinyan was gentle and polite to her. Many people even misunderstood that he liked her. Now Mo Ying had appeared. She, the stepping stone, was kicked to the side? Now that she was hugging Mo Ying, she was being hated by him? Amen. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and hugged Mo Ying even more fiercely. Let's go, Shadow, let's go see Miao Ji. Mo Ying nodded her head vigorously. Waiting here early in the morning was to wait for Yiqing Luo to meet Miao Ji together. The goo poison in Long Yunzhan's body was not cured. Chapter 39-37. Yiqing Luo hugged Mo Ying as she walked towards the entrance of the courtyard. Xiao Yinyan immediately stood up and followed behind. Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps as she turned her head sideways and looked at Xiao Yinyan as her slender brows rose slightly. You intend to keep following us? Amen. Xiao Yinyan replied straightforwardly. His deep black eyes stared at Mo Ying without blinking. His silver hair contrasted with his black eyes, making his pupils look even darker. So you're saying you're already certain that she is the person you're looking for? Yiqing Luo turned around and met his gaze. Those deep eyes seemed to be able to see through everything about him. His tone was unprecedentedly serious. To Yiqing Luo, everyone in Devil Class were her brothers who had gone through life and death together. Even if Mo Ying was older than her. But in her heart, she had always treated Mo Ying as her own sister to love. If Xiao Yinyan was sincere in wanting to resolve the misunderstanding with Mo Ying and get together again, Yiqing Luo was naturally willing. The days they had spent together, Yiqing Luo was certain that Xiao Yinyan's character was indeed not bad. Moreover, his feelings towards Mo Ying were very sincere. But the prerequisite was that he could really resolve the misunderstanding between him and Mo Ying, and not with other cliché motives. Xiao Yinyan's gaze didn't even blink, but his gaze became much gentler. Right. One word, clean and crisp, which also explained his attitude. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she hugged Mo Ying and turned around as she walked out of the courtyard's main entrance. Her voice was slightly indifferent and calm, but her tone was filled with unquestionable might. Then remember what you said today. Xiao Yinyan didn't reply as he followed behind her slowly. Old Lai leapt down from the rockery as he pounced over. There's such a lively place, how can you not bring me along? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at the old man who came up to her. After wandering for so long, you're not intending to return to Hell Palace? She realized. Why was there always a bunch of old urchins surrounding her? After Guiyu left, a god thief came. Now there was another old Lai. Previously they were still in a life and death situation with Hell Palace. Now, Hell Palace had become her acting cool backing. This world was really too complicated. Yiqing Luo was unable to keep up with this pace. Why would I want to go back to the Underworld Palace? It's so boring. There are so many interesting things to do with you. I don't want to go back. Lao Lai shook his head decisively. He looked as if he would risk his life to follow her. You can follow me, but don't create any trouble. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to persuade Old Lai. With Old Lai following him, many things would indeed be more convenient. At the very least, those who wanted to curry favor with him. They were afraid of Old Lai, so they did not dare to rush forward and surround her. In a relatively remote inn, Yiqing Luo's group had just arrived when a waiter went up to welcome them, leading them to the most corner of the private room. Yiqing Luo had just walked in when she saw Miao Ji standing by the window, deep in thought. Miao Ji, who had not been seen for a long time, was no longer wearing the complicated and intricate clothing she wore when she was in the Miao tribe. Instead, she was wearing a long green robe. Her black hair was tied up with a wooden hairpin. It made her look as gentle as water. Even the dignified and noble aura she exuded when she was at the Miaogu clan had become extremely gentle. Yiqing Luo didn't recognize the person in front of her for a moment. It was Miao Ji who heard the door opening as she regained her senses from her deep thoughts. She gave a gentle smile towards Yi Qing Luo. Qing Luo, long time no see. Chapter 39-38. Miao Ji smiled gently. Why? Didn't you come specially for my appointment? Why are you so surprised to see me? Yi Qing Luo pulled out a chair and sat down as she sized Miao Ji up. I am indeed surprised. I haven't seen you for such a long time and you seem to have changed into another person. I thought I had recognized the wrong person. People have no choice but to wear a mask under certain circumstances. Miao Ji picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for everyone. My task is completed, so I can naturally remove the mask. Previously, Miao Ji, as an outsider, was taken over by the previous Miao tribe's holy maiden and became the Miao tribe's holy maiden. Only she knew how much pressure she had to bear. So, she had no choice but to toughen herself up. Dignified, indestructible. Only by making herself stronger. Only by making herself stronger could she deter those who had ill intentions. Now, she had already retreated unscathed to the heaven realm and was living a carefree life. Naturally, there was no need to put on that mask. The few behind her all sat down. Mo Ying couldn't wait to ask, Aunt Miao, you said you already have a way to cure class monitor's goo, right? Her speech was much faster than usual, even though her tone was still as calm as before. But she could feel the fear and uneasiness in her heart. Hearing this voice, Miao Ji frowned slightly as she looked at Mo Ying. When she met Mo Ying's eyes, her pupils suddenly shrank. Even his face had turned a few shades paler. What's the matter? Yi Qing Luo noticed the change in Miao Ji's expression. Miao Ji stretched out her hand and held Mo Ying's wrist. Mo Ying was stunned as she blinked her eyes, seemingly puzzled. But Xianxia, who was by her side, moved his palm and quickly slapped down towards Miao Ji's hand. Miao Ji held Mo Ying's hand and dodged to the side. That palm landed on the table. The teacups collided and the tea spilled out. Xianxia's eyes sunk as he raised his palm to stop Miao Ji. Yi Qing Luo couldn't stand it anymore as her fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up and slid into Xianxia's palm. Xianxia, if you continue to make trouble, I will ask my shadow to get you out. Xianxia's hand froze as he frowned and looked at Yi Qing Luo. At this time, Mo Ying cooperatively looked up at him and nodded, yes, get out. Xianxia was speechless. Xianxia fell silent. But his line of sight was fixed on Miao Ji's hand that was holding Mo Ying's. He was not familiar with Miao Ji. However, when she saw Miao Ji suddenly grabbing onto Mo Ying, her actions were quick and she wanted to protect Mo Ying. However, Miao Ji only pressed on Mo Ying's pulse. After a few breaths, her brows furrowed even tighter. How long has your condition been like this? What? Mo Ying raised her head, her beautiful face was expressionless. Yi Qing Luo understood the meaning behind her words as her expression sunk. You're asking her kind? Like a soulless state? Yes, Miao Ji said. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips slightly. Ever since I knew her, she has always been like this. But this young Master Qiao was rumored to be acquainted with the shadow. The shadow in the past was not like this. Pausing slightly, Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. What you mean is, shadow was poisoned by a venomous worm? She became like this because of the goo worm. Yi Qing Luo's words came out. Xianxia and Mo Ying both looked at her. Then they looked at Miao Ji in unison. Poisoned by a venomous worm? Chapter 39-39. Miao Ji, who was being stared at by several pairs of eyes, quickly let go of Mo Ying's wrist and shook her head. Her condition doesn't seem like she was poisoned. Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. You made the atmosphere so serious if it's not. But before she could catch her breath, Miao Ji changed the topic again. The expression on her face was serious and serious. Her condition may be more troublesome than being poisoned. Troublesome? What do you mean? Do you know why she became like this? Xianxia was the most agitated as he stood up and stared at Miao Ji. Yi Qing Luo glanced at Xianxia and raised her hand to block in front of him. He lowered his eyes and looked at Yi Qing Luo's wrist. His cold expression became even colder. Even his gaze towards Yi Qing Luo had turned colder by a few notches. But Yi Qing Luo's hand still didn't move. Both sides fought for a moment. Xianxia gritted his teeth and clenched his fists as he sat down. But the pressure around him was so low that the surrounding air was slightly condensed. Aunt Miao, you don't have to care about him. Yi Qing Luo held Mo Ying's hand and looked at Miao Ji seriously. You said, the shadow is more troublesome than being poisoned. What's going on? If she is poisoned, I can still help and find those seniors to research. But her condition doesn't seem to be poisoned, but more like being possessed. Possessed? Yiqing Luo was stunned. Did she hear it wrongly? Possessed? Her first reaction was being possessed by a ghost. But this was obviously impossible. It wasn't that there were no ghosts in this strange world. To be more precise, the so-called ghosts were all spiritual bodies. For example, the old man Song in her azure dew bracelet was also considered a type of ghost. As for profound practitioners like them, they were able to interact with spirits, so how could they be bewitched? I'm not talking about being harassed by other spiritual bodies or anything else. Miao Ji stared at Mo Yuing for a while. I'm not too sure. But her condition seems like she has lost her soul. 3 souls and 6 spirits? If a person lost their soul, wouldn't they be a corpse? Although Mo Yuing looked like a puppet without a soul. There's no soul light in her eyes, and even her pulse is so weak that it's hard to detect. This was also the first time Miao Ji had encountered such a situation. My goo worm cannot sense her soul power. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she glanced sideways at the girl beside her. He couldn't believe it. This girl who would call her Qing Luo, who would fight for her favor and even requested for kisses and hugs. It would be a puppet without a soul. Then, is there any way to retrieve her soul? Xiao Yinyan, who was ordered to sit by the side by Yiqing Luo, opened his mouth hoarsely. His tone was filled with suppressed pain. Ever since he knew that Mo Yuying's memory was a mess and she had completely forgotten about him. Xiao Yinyan's heart had always been in a mess. Now he finally got his answer. Mo Yuying didn't forget about him. Instead, he had lost his soul and all his memories. As long as he could find Mo Yuying's soul, Mo Yuing would definitely remember him. Miao Ji sighed. I'm not sure. Yiqing Luo swallowed the words that were in her mouth. She was clear that Miao Ji only specialized in goo poison. The reason why she could tell that Mo Yuing had lost her soul. Chapter 3940. Mo Yuying's soul? Perhaps only by going to the godless island would he be able to get the answer. Yiqing Luo had an intuition. Mo Yuing becoming like this was definitely related to Godless Island. There was definitely something wrong with the so-called island owner of Godless Island. TSK. A way to search for souls. Old Lai, who had been leaning on the chair and playing with the teacup in boredom, suddenly spoke. He put down the teacup and looked at Yiqing Luo smilingly. I do. He smiled. The frightening scar on his face was even more shocking. The flesh that was sent flying was still moving. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Speak. Old Lai leaned over and looked as if he was presenting a treasure. There's nothing our underworld palace can't do. I can tell you the method to search for souls. However, this information can be considered as the underworld palace repaying the debt they owed you. As he spoke, he rubbed his hands together. How is it? Then let's see if your idea is reliable or not. Yiqing Luo rubbed her chin. Lao Lai proudly raised his chin and said, How can my method be unreliable? How can someone from my hell sect be unreliable? As he spoke, he lowered his voice again. Finding a soul can actually be said to be difficult. Have you heard of the ocean water divine armament? Vast water divine weapon? Yiqing Luo's brows twitched. Before he could say anything, Xiao Yinyan asked anxiously, You're talking about the azure water divine artifact that was sealed by the divine emperor before he passed away? It's rumored that there are 5 vast water divine weapons? Old Lai nodded. It's that vast water divine weapon. As long as he gathered all 5 divine artifacts, he would be able to call the wind and summon the rain, summoning the gods and ghosts. Not to mention finding the 3 souls and 7 spirits. But, according to the rumors of my Qiao family's ancestors, if we gather all 5 vast water divine artifacts and offer the blood of the descendant of the divine emperor as a sacrifice to the heavens, we can open the seal to the divine emperor's tomb. Xiao Yinyan said doubtfully. That's right. That's why I said that he could even undo the seal on the tomb of the god emperor. Isn't it a piece of cake to help that girl find her soul? Lao Lai said with a very reasonable look. Xiao Yinyan's frown deepened. Mo Yuing raised her head. Her expressionless face did not have the slightest fluctuation of emotions. That pair of empty and soulless eyes blinked. Then he said, It's too dangerous to gather all 5 azure water divine weapons. If someone really opens the tomb of the god emperor, the consequences will be unthinkable. She paused for a moment and held Yiqing Luo's hand. I'm alright, I'm already used to it. I don't remember the people in the past, but to be able to remember you, to remember everyone in Devil class, that's enough. Yi Qing Luo met with Mo Yu Ying's empty eyes, hearing her saying that everything was for their sake. She couldn't help but hugged her into her arms. She was just about to speak. His voice was cut off again. Xiaoyinyan's voice was anxious, uneasy, and fearful. This won't do, that won't do. What should he do? In the past, she was clearly so lively and beautiful. Now, is it really fair for her? Calm down. Miao Ji comforted. The vast water divine relic was a divine relic used by the divine sovereign when he was still alive. Even if we wanted to find a divine relic, it wouldn't be that easy. What's more, even if we found the divine relic, other than the Overlord, no one else is able to use the power of the divine relic. Xiao Yinyan's trembling body slowly stabilized. His eyes stared deadly at Mo Yuying. The expression on his face was filled with pain. Chapter 39-41. Everyone finally quietened down and fixed their eyes on her. Yi Qing Luo touched Mo Yuying's head, looked at her and asked seriously, "You only need to answer me, do you? Want to become a normal person?" Mo Yuying's fingers that were intertwined with hers suddenly tightened. Her eyelashes fluttered. This reaction had already indicated her answer. Yi Qing Luo brushed the hair on her forehead and gently stroked it. "In front of me, there's no need to suppress your own thoughts." Mo Yuying's lifeless eyes faintly flashed a glimmer of light. After some time, she finally nodded her head under Yi Qing Luo's gaze. She thought, how could he not think about it? Who would be willing to be a puppet without feelings and emotions? She knew her own situation very well. For a person like her, other than everyone in Devil class, no one would treat her as a real person. She would also hope for warmth. She wanted to be like a normal person, to have her own emotions and expressions. But the price of returning to normal was too great. She was afraid. Just thinking about it is enough. Yi Qing Luo stopped Mo Yuying's thoughts as her lips curled up slightly. "Leave the matter regarding the Azure Water God relic to me, Qing Luo." Mo Yuying's lips moved, wanting to say something but hesitating. Yi Qing Luo smiled, lowered her head and leaned close to her ear. "Don't feel guilty, it's not only because of you. My original intention was to gather all the Xianxia artifacts." Mo Yuying still wanted to say something. Yi Qing Luo had already patted her head as she widened the distance between them. To prevent Mo Yuying from blaming herself for the Xianxia artifact again, Yi Qing Luo changed the topic. "Aunt Miao, let's not talk about this matter for now. Yesterday you wrote in the letter that you already have a way to cure Zhan's goo, is that true?" Long Yunzhan was mentioned. Mo Yuying's attention was indeed diverted. Miao Jiwei was stunned for a moment before remembering her purpose of coming here today. "To be honest, I'm not too sure myself." Yi Qing Luo wasn't disappointed. The poison that was placed on Long Yunzhan's body was a poison from the upper realm. Naturally, it wasn't that easy to solve. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, it was better than having no hope at all. "So, that means that you already know just what is the goo poison in Zhan's body?" she asked. Miao Ji nodded with a serious expression. "Based on what Yi told me, the goo poison in Sir Long's body should be the most powerful goo poison in the heaven realm, the heart-devouring goo. Witchcraft family? The best of witchcraft? Heart-devouring insect." Listening to these heavy blows falling one after another, Yi Qing Luo was extremely shocked. She had heard about this witchcraft family from Old Man Tsang. This witchcraft, compared to the Miaogu clan, it was of an unknown number of times higher level. They could be considered as the largest venomous insect clan in the upper realm. He was also an existence that many large forces were unwilling to provoke. Not wanting to provoke them and not wanting to provoke the Underworld Palace were two completely different concepts. The people from the Underworld Palace were a bunch of lunatics. They were clearly fighting head-on and causing a ruckus. If they provoked the Miaogu aristocrat clan, he might just die for no reason. He didn't even know how he died. It was very strange. Heart-devouring goo. That is an extremely precious kind of goo. It can be said that in the entire witchcraft family, there are less than 10 of them. Those are all peerless grade goo worms which had been nurtured for 100 years. When Miao Ji said this, her tone was filled with admiration. Chapter 39-42. Listening to Miao Ji's explanation, Yi Qing Luo was shocked. 100 years of nurturing witchcraft's best peerless worm was planted on Long Yunzhan. Witchcraft aristocratic family. Or who had such deep hatred towards Long Yunzhan. No matter if it was the witchcraft aristocratic family, or someone else. The person who planted the worm on Long Yunzhan was absolutely not a small character. The entire witchcraft aristocratic family had less than 10 heart-devouring worms, and it was planted on a young man with amnesia. Wait, amnesia. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Long Yunzhan's amnesia. Could it be related to this heart-devouring worm? Human Dragon Clan. Long Yunzhan. And the witchcraft aristocratic family. Looked like it involved a lot of people. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as a glint flashed past her eyes. Qing Luo, I specially asked you out today to tell you that this heart-devouring worm has no cure. Miao Ji looked at Yiqing Luo's expression and couldn't bear it, but she had to make things clear. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she suddenly raised her head. Didn't you say? You have a way. The only way I can think of is. Miao Ji paused, took a deep breath and said word by word, while the heart-devouring worm hasn't acted up, kill the person who is poisoned. Impossible. Yiqing Luo rejected without thinking. Kill Long Yunzhan? How could that be possible? If Long Yunzhan was really poisoned and wanted to kill him to free him. Earlier when Long Yunzhan's poison acted up and hurt Yan Xiaoyi, she would have already taken action. Long Yunzhan was her brother. Her companion. No matter what, she would never give up on anyone. Other than this, there's no other way. Miao Ji sighed. I know to you this is a very painful thing, but actually he is feeling more pain than you. Miao Ji looked at the young lady whose petite body started to tremble as her voice became gentler. I know how you feel. If it wasn't for the fact that I can't think of any other way, I would definitely not suggest this to you. She stretched out her hand and placed it on the young lady's clenched fist. The terror of the heart-devouring parasite lies in its ability to slowly devour a person's heart, soul, consciousness, and everything that belongs to the victim. In the end, not even bones will be left of the victim. Most importantly, the heart-devouring parasite will also control the consciousness of the victim, making the victim do something that they will regret for the rest of their life while they are awake. She tightened her grip and said, when the parasite took effect, the pain and torment your brother suffered was worse than death. When he heard the name of this goo worm, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess the insidiousness of this goo worm. He just didn't expect it to be so insidious. Qing Luo? Mou Ying's hand grabbed onto Yiqing Luo's arm as her little body trembled in shock. She opened her empty eyes as she stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Even if there were no emotions, Yiqing Luo could sense the fear and helplessness in Mou Ying's heart. Yiqing Luo tried her best to calm herself down as she raised her hand and rubbed her furry little head. Since we know that Zhan is afflicted with the heart-devouring parasite, then we will definitely be able to find a way to cure Zhan. Mou Ying's stiff face started to show some signs of change. Then she nodded her head vigorously. Both her hands grabbed tightly onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sigh. Miao Ji sighed helplessly. I knew you would say that. Chapter 39-43. Miao Ji let go of her hand. I will continue to think of a way, you should consider it well. Regarding Yiqing Luo's choice. When Miao Ji mentioned it, she had already thought of this outcome. But even if she knew, she still had to say out this cruel method because she was responsible for Yiqing Luo. But the final decision was still up to them. She found out that Mou Ying had lost her soul. She found out about the terror of the heart-devouring parasite and the incurable parasite. Yiqing Luo's mood was extremely heavy. Miao Ji let out a long sigh and gave her a few more reminders before she left. Before she left, she specially handed Mou Ying a letter for her to pass to Miao Yi. After Miao Ji left, the few people in the private room had different emotions. Yiqing Luo and Mou Ying's minds were filled with Long Yunzhan and the heart-devouring parasite. As for Xiao Yinyan, his mind was filled with searching for Mou Ying's lost soul and awakening her memory. His expression was complicated as he stared at Mou Ying in pain. Only Old Lai didn't seem to feel the gloomy atmosphere at all. After Miao Ji left, he went up to Yiqing Luo and his eyes lit up. Madam D, you said I will pass the Azure Water Divine Relic to you. Does that mean you intend to collect all 5 pieces of Azure Water Divine Relic? Saying that, he gave a sneaky smile. If I remember correctly, Madam D seems to have the Azure Water Divine Relic on you. When you collect all the Azure Water Divine Relic, can you bring me along? Let me have a look at the legendary Azure Water Divine Relic. Old Lai rubbed his hands as he spoke. That terrifying scar on his face was trembling so much that the red flesh was flying. The more he smiled, the more ferocious he looked. Yiqing Luo didn't want to bother about him. Old Lai went nearer instead. His nagging was like a fly buzzing around her ear. Xiao Yinyan couldn't take it anymore as he pressed his palm on Old Lai's head. Old Lai fell onto the ground. He fell flat on his face. "Can't you see that we are in trouble?" Xianxia was irritated and his expression was dark. Old Lai rubbed his face as he got up from the ground. "Didn't I give you an idea?" Xianxia didn't even look at Lao Lai. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Mo Ying's wrist. "You, come out with me for a while." Mo Ying didn't have time to react. Xianxia had already dragged her to the door. The room door closed and there was only Yiqing Luo and Old Lai left in the room. Lao Lai obviously wanted to be mischievous again. But seeing Yiqing Luo's gloomy expression, he rubbed his sore butt. Finally, he snorted loudly to show that he was angry. Then he jumped down from the window and flew away. Yiqing Luo, forget it, when Old Lai knows that no one is coaxing him, he will come back obediently. What are you doing? Mo Ying's arm was in pain from his grip, but she didn't struggle. It was only when they reached a corner of the corridor that Xianxia stopped in his tracks. With one hand, he pulled the girl into his embrace. "What's your relationship with that man called Zhan?" He could tell. No matter if it was Yiqing Luo or Mo Ying, they both cared about that man. Yiqing Luo obviously treated him as a brother. But Mo Ying, the attention she paid to that man was obviously different. So much that she didn't even care about the fact that she didn't have 3 souls and 7 spirits. She only wanted to know how to cure that man's goo. She even frowned because of that man. Xianxia had been suppressing his emotions. Chapter 39-44. She was obviously so cold towards him. Even when she spoke, she would only reply after a long time. As though she didn't care about him at all. The reason why she cared about him was because he was Yiqing Luo's friend. This feeling had been accumulating in the depths of Xianxia's heart. This time, after he felt that Mo Ying had a different attitude towards another man, he completely exploded. Xianxia held on to her hand as he stared deadly at her. He wanted to transmit his inner feelings to her. But Mo Ying was expressionless. There was no trace of emotion in her empty eyes. She didn't reply. Their eyes met. After some time, Xianxia felt a sense of defeat. He shut his eyes tightly and slowly released the hand which was holding Mo Ying's hand. His shoulders drooped down powerlessly. His back was bent and he looked extremely dejected. He slowly took a few steps back and gazed deeply at Mo Ying. Then he slowly turned around. His feet staggered and swayed. It was as if something heavy had completely crushed him. Mo Ying's empty eyes suddenly blinked. She stared at Xianxia's back view. His extremely black eyes flashed with a hint of dark and gloomy light. She lifted up the wrist which was held by Xianxia. She lowered her eyes and stared at the place which was held by Xianxia. Then she slowly pressed her hand on her chest. Just now, when Xianxia let go of her hand, that place on her chest seemed to hurt a little. That prickling feeling disappeared in a flash. Was it painful? Does she also have the feeling of pain? Mo Ying looked at the place where her palm was pressed and raised her head stiffly, looking at the man's staggering tall figure. Just now, the moment when he turned around to leave, her body actually had a reflexive desire to keep him. This was a strange and wonderful feeling. She had never felt this way before. Bam! Suddenly there was a sound of a heavy object colliding in front. Mo Ying looked over. In front, that man who couldn't even walk steadily crashed into the stone wall at the corner. He staggered and fell to the ground. As for him, he just sat on the ground. He had no intention of getting up at all. Mo Ying subconsciously walked towards that person and squatted beside him. "You can't move? Why are you sitting on the ground?" Hearing this emotionless, machine-like voice, Luo Bingyun's heart skipped a beat. The man with the dog on his back suddenly turned his head and looked at her happily. Are you concerned about me?" He grabbed her wrist with both hands. Her face was reflected in his eyes. Mo Ying looked at her hands that were being grabbed and blinked her eyes. She stared at him and said, "This is outside and you are the young master of the Qiao family. Don't let others see you being rude." Xianxia's eyes were full of smiles. With Mo Ying's support, he stood up. His gaze had been fixed on her from the beginning to the end. It was as if he wanted to absorb everything about her into the deepest part of his heart. Mo Ying felt a little uncomfortable under his gaze. Just as he was about to say something, her wrist suddenly tightened. Her petite body was tightly held in Xianxia's arms. Mo Ying was a little stiff, but she didn't struggle. Chapter 39-45. Mo Ying's body stiffened and she felt very uncomfortable. But, he had to admit it. Xianxia held her in his arms. She could feel the warmth from Xianxia's body. She was not disgusted. He had no intention of resisting. On the contrary, something seemed to fill her heart. Mo Ying didn't know what this feeling was, nor could she describe it. I won't ask any more. I won't ask any questions that you don't want to answer. Xiao Yinyan tightened his grip on her, as if he was afraid that the person in front of him would disappear. That fearful and cautious look on her face. Mo Ying blinked her empty eyes again. Soon after, she slowly raised her hands and imitated the way he hugged her, hugging his back. Xiao Yinyan's body stiffened. His muscles were all tensed up. Mo Ying didn't notice the change in the man as she followed her first instinct and said word by word, "Da Zhan, that Qing Luo mentioned is my class monitor, he is." Slowly, she told him about her relationship with Long Yunzhan. This was probably the most she had ever spoken in her memory. However, after the explanation, Xiao Yinyan's mood had obviously improved a lot. She did not continue to dwell on the matter of how much she had said. The next day, Mo Ying then raised the matter of returning to Nirvana realm to Yiqing Luo. She came to the Earth domain originally to help Yiqing Luo. Now he had finished helping her. He also obtained information about the goo worms in Long Yunzhan's body. Furthermore, she had been in the Earth domain for a long time. If he didn't go back, the brothers of the World Mercenary Group were all worried to death. She still had to tell her brothers about the heart-devouring goo. Yiqing Luo didn't stop her. After all, Mo Ying had been in the Earth realm for a very long time. However, she readily agreed. Someone immediately protested. Xiao Yinyan grabbed Mo Ying's wrist and stood up. "I don't agree." He then turned to look at Mo Ying. I won't allow you to leave the Earth domain." Mo Ying tilted her head and looked at him expressionlessly. "I want to go back." "No." Xiao Yin pursed his lips into a straight line. It wasn't easy for him to meet Mo Ying again, even if they hadn't solved the misunderstanding. But we met again. He didn't want to let her out of his sight again. He had already let go once. He didn't want to let go a second time. Mo Ying was a little unhappy and struggled to shake off his hand. "Xiao Yinyan." Xiao Yinyan refused to let go. The two of them went back and forth. Yiqing Luo's teeth were about to ache from watching. "Xiao Yinyan, if you don't want to leave the shadow, why don't you just follow it to the Nirvana realm?" She rolled her eyes. Xiao Yinyan frowned. He was the eldest young master of the Qiao family. How could he leave so easily? That's where Shadow has been living ever since he lost his memories of you and me. Don't you want to take a look? Don't you want to get to know Shadow's brothers and sisters? You don't want the people Shadow cares about to acknowledge your existence? Yiqing Luo didn't even bother to pant as she continuously sent out soul interrogations. "Xiao Yinyan." He looked at Yiqing Luo as his handsome face trembled slightly, vaguely distorted. In the end it turned into two words. "I will go." Yiqing Luo smiled satisfactorily. "This is the attitude of chasing after my shadow. Then it's decided happily." The decision was made. Chapter 3946. Mo Ying kept staring at Xiao Yinyan's departing figure, not making a single sound. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she gave a teasing smile. "Why? Shadow isn't willing to let him go to Nirvana realm with you?" Hearing her voice, Mo Ying's stiff head turned over as her empty gaze met Yiqing Luo's. Following that, she thought seriously for a moment and shook her head. "It's not that I'm not willing. That means I'm willing." Yiqing Luo's smile became even more evil. Mo Ying blinked as her expressionless face creased. "It's his freedom to go wherever he wants to go. So even if he wants to go to Nirvana realm, it doesn't have much to do with me." This honest words made Yiqing Luo cough dryly. Luckily Xiao Yinyan had returned to the Qiao residence. Otherwise, hearing this, wouldn't her heart be pierced to death? Tsk. Looked like Xiao Yinyan's journey to chase after his wife was still far away. She had already hinted so clearly, but Mo Ying had no reaction at all. She could only silently cheer for Xiao Yinyan in her heart. "Qing Luo?" Suddenly, Mo Ying's voice sounded a little hesitant as she called out Yiqing Luo's name. Waiting for Yiqing Luo's gaze to look over. Her two little hands were pinched together. "Since yesterday I've been wanting to ask you a question." Yiqing Luo replied, "What you want to ask is regarding the heart-devouring parasite. Should I tell Zhan?" Mo Ying nodded. Of course he has the right to know his own situation. Yiqing Luo had no intention to hide. "Say whatever you want to say. In the end it still depends on Zhan's own choice." Mo Ying's adorable lips moved as though she wanted to say something, but eventually she kept her words back. "I know what you're worried about. Yi Qing Luo pinched Mo Yu Ying's face as she explained with a light smile, I also know that based on Zhan's character he will definitely choose to kill him now, in case the heart-devouring parasite acts up in future and hurt his brothers. If it was anyone from the World Mercenary Group, they would probably choose this way. They would rather sacrifice themselves, and not bear to let any of their brothers get hurt. Yi Qing Luo's eyes lifted up slightly as her gaze looked towards the horizon, as though she could see those brothers in the world group through the sky. There was a gentle and peaceful smile on his face. After telling him everything, you just need to tell him one thing for me. If he believes me, then he should live on. Mo Yu Ying's eyelashes trembled and her empty eyes blinked. An indescribable emotion spread in his heart. It seemed like, ever since they arrived in the land, she could sense more and more emotions. It was as if she was becoming more and more like a person. After a while, she nodded vigorously. Yes. Right there, the world group had always believed in Qing Luo. Qing Luo would definitely bring them a miracle. Therefore, the class monitor would be fine. The heart-devouring parasite could definitely be removed. At noon, the group ate a meal together. Mo Yuing brought Xianxia to the Nirvana realm. Before leaving, Patriarch Qiao even sent him off. He looked at Mo Yuing with sparkling eyes. Although Mo Yuing didn't have a soul or emotions, her body instinctively understood some of the ways of the world. Looking at the passionate Patriarch Qiao, her face stiffened as she said word by word, Patriarch Qiao, I will get Xianxia back as soon as possible. Patriarch Qiao replied, No need, no need. You can use this lad for as long as you want. Just take him, it's fine even if you don't want to bring him back. Chapter 3947. Xianxia, the onlookers. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. No wonder Xianxia was able to obtain Patriarch Qiao's permission so easily. Generally speaking, large forces and clans would not allow their eldest son to wander around the lower realms. To them, this was beneath their dignity. Furthermore, it was extremely risky for people from the Earth domain to head to the Nirvana realm. If the Historian of Balance and the others found out, it would be very difficult to deal with them. But Patriarch Qiao didn't even hesitate before he agreed to it. How afraid was Patriarch Qiao that his son couldn't find a wife? Previously when he saw her, his eyes also lit up. Now that he saw Mo Yuing, his eyes lit up. Could it be that to Patriarch Qiao, it was fine as long as it was a woman? After sending Mo Yuing and Xianxia off with her eyes, Yi Qing Luo turned back and hugged Kitty Li, rubbing her furry little head as she wailed, Speaking of this, we really haven't seen our brothers in the world group for a long time, I really miss them. Yes, oh. When will they be able to reach the Earth realm together? Kitty Li hugged Yi Qing Luo back. A cold gaze was fixed on the two of them. Yi Qing Luo directly ignored it as she hugged the soft kitten, comforting Shadow's reluctant heart as she sent him off. Very soon, especially after Shadow returns. They will definitely work harder to improve themselves, then come back to the Earth boundary to look for us. Their 3-month appointment was about to arrive. I hope when we meet again. They had all undergone earth-shattering changes. The two of them were talking to each other. The owner of the cold gaze finally couldn't take it anymore. He directly grabbed Kitty Li and pulled her into his arms. With an unfriendly expression he said, Woman, if you feel lonely, go to your sovereign. Don't touch my little wild cat. Mo grumbled and hugged Kitty Li tightly. It was as if Kitty Li was his possession. What frustrated Mo the most was, when he hugged Kitty Li's face was full of unwillingness and she even made threatening gestures. When it reached Yi Qing Luo's arms, that adorable little kitten appearance, it even took the initiative to return the hug. The more he looked, the angrier he felt. Women. She already had her own man, yet she still came to snatch his woman. Mo's vengeful gaze made Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but roll her eyes. What was the point of glaring at his own woman if he couldn't coax her? Mo hugged the struggling Kitty Li tightly. Until Kitty Li stopped struggling. Mo's expression eased up a little, but the expression he shot at Yi Qing Luo was still rather unfriendly. Speaking of which, where did your man go? I haven't seen him for a day. As soon as he finished speaking, the expression on his face became extremely annoying. And little Qingwu also disappeared. A single man and a single woman? Yi Qing Luo gave him a tight slap on the face and gave a fake smile. Coax your own woman first. Look at your position in Cat's heart, it's not even comparable to me, what a waste of that face of yours. Yi Qing Luo. Mo gritted his teeth as his heart was stabbed. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered with him as she turned around and left. Speaking of which, she really did not know where Mo Xian had gone to. Just as he returned to his room, he suddenly heard a slight noise outside the door. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to lie down on the bed, she raised her brows and looked towards the door. After a while he heard a light knock on the door. The sound of knocking was very careful. Chapter 39:48. Just by listening to the footsteps and the rhythm of the knocking on the door, Yiqing Luo was able to recognize who was outside the door. When Dmo Xian came, he only brought along 2 people from the imperial palace. According to what Dmo Xian said, she had specially asked Tang Beiyuan to bring her unromantic fiancé out to relax and cultivate their relationship. Because of this, he knew of their existence. Yiqing Luo didn't specially look for them. The person at the door was silent for a moment, as if hesitating about something. After a long while he pushed open the door and walked in. The woman was dressed in a light blue outfit that wrapped around her exquisite body. Just one look and Yiqing Luo was able to tell that the lady's exquisite and beautiful face was filled with obvious worry. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but frowned. Didn't Tang Beiyuan come out with her fiancé? This could also be considered a kind of honeymoon. Why? The worry on Tang Beiyuan's face was even worse than before. She didn't feel like a girl in love at all. Could it be that something had happened between her and her fiancé? Yiqing Luo thought that Tang Beiyuan had specially come over to look for her, and with such a cautious and bashful look, she thought that she was here to seek advice on how to get along with each other before being lovers. She had not expected that when Tang Beiyuan walked in front of her, she looked at Yiqing Luo seriously and spoke carefully. Qing Luo? You don't listen to young Master Mo's rubbish. The Overlord only has you in his heart. The Overlord and Miss June are absolutely not in that kind of relationship which young Master Mo had mentioned. As soon as he said that, Yiqing Luo was stunned. What was going on? Why did he suddenly say this to her? Yiqing Luo coughed fiercely, cough. Beiyuan, do you think that I will take Zomo's words to heart? Tang Beiyuan shook her head, then nodded. I just wanted to explain on behalf of the Overlord. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and grabbed Tang Beiyuan's hand, pulling her to the bedside to sit down. This matter totally doesn't require any explanation. I totally didn't put what Zomo said to heart. Tang Beiyuan pursed her red lips. I know, but it's my duty. I naturally believe in Xian. Yiqing Luo leaned against the headboard, and I naturally believe in Xiao Qingwu's character. Speaking of which, Dmo Xian and Jun Qingwu had met before her. If anything had happened to them, it would not have been her turn to appear. Furthermore, Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she gave a chilly smile. Even if Xian had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to mess around behind my back. After a slight pause she continued, even if he wants to mess around, my little Qingwu doesn't have any thoughts about him. It was not her blind trust in the friend she thought. It was a feeling. She didn't know how to describe this feeling. Oh, Tang Beiyuan replied indifferently. Then she lowered her head in silence. There was a dejected look on her face. Beiyuan, are you and your fiancé? Yiqing Luo frowned as she raised her hand and caressed Beiyuan's glabella. To be honest, every time he saw Tang Beiyuan, the worry on her face deepened. The space between his brows was wrinkled. However, before her hand could even touch Tang Beiyuan's eyes widened. Her outstretched palm was covered by a broad and thick palm. Suddenly his body felt light. Her whole body fell into a broad and warm embrace. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her inner heart. A man's mellow voice floated down from above her head. When I wasn't around, Lil Luo, seemed to be bad-mouthing me. Chapter 39:49. She hadn't seen the man for a day. Then she smelled the familiar male pheromones from the man. Yiqing Luo suddenly flew up as her arms circled around the man's neck. Ah Xian. Did you miss me? Dmo Xian's eyelids drooped slightly as his narrow peach blossom eyes seemed to ripple like a pool of spring water. Yiqing Luo's smile was like a flower as she didn't conceal it at all. Yes. The straightforward and decisive answer caused a smile to appear on the man's handsome face. He glanced at Tang Beiyuan from the corner of his eyes. It was just a glance and Tang Beiyuan had already stood up as she silently left the room. She heard a slight sound from the room door. Yiqing Luo immediately turned her head and was about to call Tang Beiyuan. Her chin was locked by the man's slender fingers as he forcefully twisted her head in front of him as their eyes met. Her pupils were filled with the man's face. I still have something to say to Beiyuan. Why did you let her go? Even Yiqing Luo herself didn't notice that the way she was nestled in the man's arms was delicate and alluring. Even her voice and tone were unknowingly tainted with a coquettish tone. This was only in front of Dmo Xian when her body and mind were completely relaxed. Dmo Xian carried her up by the waist as he sat by the side of the bed and placed the young lady on his lap. His arms were tightly wrapped around the young lady's petite body. The young lady's entire body was wrapped tightly in his arms. "Since you miss me, don't you have anything to say to me?" His deep voice was clear and melodious. Yiqing Luo leaned her head on his chest. First come, first served. Following that, she raised her head and stared at the man's chin. "Didn't you say that you specially asked Beiyuan to bring her fiancé here to nurture their relationship? Why can't I see a smile on Beiyuan's face?" "Don't ask about this in front of Beiyuan." Dmo Xian's fingers caressed her soft lips. To her, this should be very cruel. No wonder when she wanted to ask Beiyuan if something had happened between her and her fiancé, Dmo Xian appeared at the right time. She bit Dmo Xian's finger as she asked vaguely, "Then, what's going on between them? Do you expect a blockhead to understand?" Dmo Xian allowed her to bite, his eyes burning as he stared at her mouth. "Do you think everyone is as lucky as you to be able to meet such a good husband like me?" Yiqing Luo abruptly increased the strength of her teeth and released him, shameless. After being stared at by the man's burning gaze, her body seemed to be burning with fire. This man, why did he always stare at her like he wanted to devour her? "All right, Beiyuan's matter, leave it to them to settle themselves. What we need to do now is to have a good talk." Dmo Xian's voice suddenly deepened, revealing a faint magnetism. "What do you mean by, even if he wants to mess around? Shouldn't you explain this sentence properly?" As he spoke, his voice became deeper and deeper. Yiqing Luo only felt that the world was spinning. His back was already leaning against the bed. The man's scorching hot body pressed down on her. Yiqing Luo grabbed his collar tightly as her eyes widened. "You heard wrongly, I didn't say this sentence." "Really?" Dmo Xian's smile was like the blossoming of spring flowers, as his long and narrow peach blossom eyes revealed a wavy arc. Like a blooming datura, giving off an alluring yet suffocating dangerous charm. Chapter 3950. In your heart, am I someone who would mess around? Yiqing Luo wanted to avoid this question, but Dmo Xian was overbearing. His warm breath even came directly to his face. Yiqing Luo's little body shrunk as she tried to move away from Dmo Xian's confinement. The man's arm moved and locked onto her waist. "Lil Luo, if you don't answer this question properly, you will be punished." Dmo Xian gave an evil smile as his eyes were filled with evil. That evil made Yiqing Luo feel her whole body turning soft. Especially her waist. Wasn't he already fed? Why was he still like this? As though he had been hungry for a long time. Dmo Xian suddenly locked her hand and pressed it on the bed. He bent over and his thin lips were already on her lips. "Since you don't answer then, let's start my punishment directly." "Yiqing Luo, you didn't even give me a chance to answer." Normal people would never be able to understand the thoughts of a beast. Yiqing Luo fainted from the torment. She didn't know if she fainted for a while or for a long time. Yiqing Luo felt her sore body turning numb. Following that, she felt warmth spreading throughout her body. She sighed comfortably as she lazily lifted her eyelids. She then discovered that she was leaning against a bathtub. The warm water covered her neck. The temperature was just right. There was a fragrance that seemed to be able to cleanse the body and mind. The fragrance entered her nose and her soul was purified. She closed her eyes comfortably as she felt drowsy. Suddenly, a hand covered her skin. The gentle touch washed the sweat on her body. "Ah Xian." She yawned as she lazily lifted her eyelids and glanced at Dmo Xian who was behind her. Following that, her body moved and her head with water droplets came closer to the man's arms. It also soaked the man's clothes. Yiqing Luo smiled delightfully. Dmo Xian looked at the young lady's tired face with that smile. He lovingly pinched her mischievous little face. He totally didn't care that his clothes were already soaked as he continued to gently wash the young lady's body. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and leaned into the man's arms, enjoying his service. "I haven't seen you for a day, what on earth did you and little Qinggu do?" Yiqing Luo's voice sounded lazy, with a tinge of a young lady's softness. Dmo Xian chuckled softly, his melodious voice in the midst of the mist was a little more seductive. "Why? Didn't you say that you absolutely trust her?" "I'm just curious and worried." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him and purposely splashed some water on the man's face. He ran out without saying a word and didn't report back for a day and a night. Even if she knew that Dmo Xian would be fine. But he would also worry. Dmo Xian couldn't help but laugh at the young girl's childish actions. He lowered his voice and said with a chuckle, "Since it's already wet, I don't mind if it gets a little wetter." As the man's voice fell, her delicate body suddenly felt light. Then water splashed in the bathtub. The man's tall body fell into the bathtub. Yiqing Luo cried out softly as she hooked her arms around the man's neck. The man was only wearing a thin inner garment. He took a soak in the water, and was dilly-dallied by the young lady again. It was already opened, revealing a large piece of skin. Their bodies were pressed together. Dmo Xian hugged the young lady tightly and whispered into her ear, "It's my fault, there won't be a next time." Chapter 3951. I got a piece of news and specially asked Qingwu to check it out. Dmo Xian hugged her as he explained gently. Yiqing Luo was shocked by Dmo Xian's action as she sobered up. "What news? Do you still remember the palace lord of the Palace of Seclusion on the surface?" Dmo Xian said as he continued to stir the water gently. Yiqing Luo was stunned. "You mean that palace lord of the Palace of Seclusion on the surface has come to the Earth realm?" Lil Luo, is so intelligent, what use do I have? Dmo Xian pretended to sigh helplessly as he pinched the young lady's tender cheeks. "You're right, I indeed got the news that that person has come to the Earth realm." Towards that palace lord on the surface, Yiqing Luo had an indescribable feeling. That person was from the Palace of Seclusion on the surface. And apparently, he had a close relationship with the real mastermind of the Palace of Seclusion. But his attitude towards her was very strange. It wasn't like the Palace of Seclusion, who had deep enmity towards her. Instead, he seemed to be helping her several times. Towards that person's identity, Yiqing Luo was still very concerned about it. Her slender brows creased slightly. Then, has Lil Qingwu found out? Dmo Xian lowered his eyelids as he looked at the young lady who was obviously interested. He bent down and bit the tip of her nose. "Lil Luo, is very interested in that person?" Yiqing Luo was in pain as she struggled to push the man away. Water splashed up. She covered her nose as she stared at him in annoyance. "I'm just curious who he is." Dmo Xian tightened his arms as he hugged her tightly. "No need to care who he is, just remember that he is from the Palace of Seclusion, that's enough." Yiqing Luo? Meaning? Palace of Seclusion and her were enemies. So no matter who that palace lord on the surface was, anyway they were enemies? This man's flying vinegar was unparalleled. Yiqing Luo kept her emotions as she looked at Dmo Xian seriously. "Alright, then I won't be curious anymore. But, that palace lord on the surface, has he really come to the Earth realm?" Dmo Xian looked at the young lady's pretentious look as he laughed. His slender fingers cupped the young lady's face as he straightened her. Then he adjusted her delicate body into a position and nestled her in his arms. He picked up a soft handkerchief and wiped the girl's delicate body. Then he continued, "He has indeed come, but, at the moment, we cannot be sure of his purpose. The Palace of Darkness has just done such a big thing in the land domain. Even the balance historian has been alerted. They shouldn't dare to come out and cause trouble for a while." Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she enjoyed the man's gentle service while speaking lazily. "That person came to the Earth domain to investigate the current situation in the Earth domain? Or perhaps he's targeting me. Worried?" Dmo Xian chuckled as he leaned over and whispered into her ear. Yiqing Luo didn't even lift her eyelids. "With you around, what am I worried about?" The man's husky and magnetic laughter rang in her ears. Obviously this sentence pleased him. To be honest, she was not worried at all. The current situation in the land. No matter what, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness didn't dare to act recklessly anymore. However, that damned Palace of Gloomy Darkness liked to hide in the dark and shoot arrows. This point was indeed too disturbing. The warm water on her body and the soft touch, mixed with the man's comfortable massage technique. Yiqing Luo was so comfortable that she almost fell asleep. However, this comfortable feeling gradually became a little off. Chapter 3952. Yiqing Luo? He had tormented her so much that she had fainted. Hadn't he been satiated yet? Yiqing Luo opened her eyes expressionlessly as she grabbed his hand. "Did you think I had really fallen asleep? Do you think I look like such a beast?" His lips curled as his hoarse laughter was deep and pleasant to the ears. Yiqing Luo increased the strength of her fingers as she pinched his hand and replied without hesitation, "Yes." Dmo Xian's laughter became even more alluring as he leaned close to her ear and breathed out warm air. "Since Lil Luo, has said so, your husband will naturally meet Lil Luoer's expectations. That seductive voice was like a small hook that tugged at her heartstrings. The next moment, her petite body suddenly felt light. Water splashed. She was pulled by a force as her face faced towards Dimo Xian's direction, facing the man. Yiqing Luo panted lightly as her hands instinctively circled around the man's neck. Her petite body fell onto the man's chest. Damn you beast. Yiqing Luo had yet to regain her senses when the man's action made her sink into oblivion. In front of her eyes, it was as if fireworks had bloomed, extremely splendid. After that, Yiqing Luo really fainted and only climbed up the next afternoon. She simply wanted to cry but had no tears. She should be proud. Where was her man's battle power? Or should she mourn for her future days? She would die in that beast's arms? Why is your face so ugly after you woke up? Just as she was cursing a certain beast in her heart, a beast's voice was heard by the side of her ear. Just hearing this voice, Yiqing Luo felt her waist and legs turning soft. Her line of sight moved. She saw that peerless man leaning over by the side of the bed. His hand moved. Her soft petite body fell into his arms. Yiqing Luo gave a humph as she shifted in his arms and found a comfortable position to nestle. Looking at your expression. Could it be that you're not satisfied with my performance last night? Dimo Xian's brows were filled with a smile. That smile was like the blooming of spring flowers, captivating one's soul. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, quivered a little as her comfortable face trembled twice. Satisfied. Satisfied. I couldn't be more satisfied. She was afraid that the man would continue. Since my performance last night was not satisfactory, I will perform well tonight. If she really hears this, she reckons that you will die. But Yiqing Luo had apparently underestimated a certain beast's degree of beastliness. After the young girl finished her words, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. The smile in the man's eyes deepened. His handsome face, which was filled with seduction and cold lines, also became much gentler. He chuckled. He laughed so hard that Su almost exploded. Then his slender fingers clasped the girl's chin. A warm kiss landed on her lips. His kiss was infatuated. It made Yiqing Luo, whose waist and legs were originally sore, even softer and softer. Her eyes, which had just woken up, were about to tear up. Following that, the man's voice, which was so seductive that it broke the rules, rang out in a low voice as if he was possessed. Since Lil Luoer is so satisfied then, tonight I will continue to work hard to make you even more satisfied. Yiqing Luo felt numb all over. She was so frightened by his words that the feeling of that kiss, which she couldn't bear at all, was completely swept away. Her little face turned pale from fright. As Dimo Xian kissed, he sensed that the young girl's mood wasn't right. When he lifted his head, he saw the young girl's pale face. Her watery eyes stared at him in astonishment. That look was indeed very cute. Chapter 3953. Looks like Lil Luoer was really frightened last night. Next time he had to control himself. Frighten Lil Luoer for a long time to come. Lil Luoer would probably not let him touch her. Dimo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles as he leaned over and kissed her lips. It made the young girl's pale face blush. Only then did he release the girl's lips and let her go. I promise next time I will be gentler. His laughter was low and hoarse as he reached out to pull the robe by the side and helped Yiqing Luo change into it. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she lifted her leg to kick the man. Do you still want a next time? Don't even think about it. Her feet were covered by the man's broad palm. Then he pulled with all his might. Her delicate body fell into the man's arms. The man skillfully and gently helped her get dressed. Then he carried her off the bed. Next to him, toiletries were already prepared. Yiqing Luo didn't want to move as she completed a series of actions to wake up under Dimo Xian's care. She had deliberately splashed the water on the man several times. He didn't even look the slightest bit displeased. His actions were still as gentle as ever as he helped her wipe away the water. Working hard without complaint, not retaliating when hit, not rebutting when scolded, made Yiqing Luo feel much better. The expression on his face softened a little. In such a sweet atmosphere, the room was filled with pink bubbles. Yiqing Luo dressed neatly and walked out of the room. She rejected Dimo Xian's request to carry her all the way. When she woke up, it was already noon. If she allowed Dimo Xian to carry her out, wasn't this clearly telling everyone? What did she and Dimo Xian do last night? Moreover, his entire body was sore and limp. If he didn't move, he would die. She would only feel worse. Yiqing Luo left the room and was pulled by Dmo Xian to the main hall. Piping hot dishes had already been prepared in the hall. Yiqing Luo rubbed her tummy as she snorted coldly at Dmo Xian. At least he knew his place. He knew that she was exhausted last night. Now she knew that he had taken good care of her every little bit. Amen. Yiqing Luo was like a tsundere little princess as she took her seat. After a while, Lao Lai heard that she had woken up and rushed over. After seeing the table full of delicacies, he reached out and grabbed the table. As he grabbed, he said, "Madame D, I've been waiting for you for so long just now." "Ah. Lord, what are you doing?" "Ah." His hand had yet to reach over. It was caught between two chopsticks. It was Di Zun. That cold gaze and the strength of the chopsticks sent chills down old Lai's spine. He immediately retracted his hand and shrunk it into his chest. He was filled with grief and indignation. "Di Zun, these were specially prepared for Di Foreign. If you don't want me to touch them, just tell me. Why do you have to be so cruel?" Dmo Xian did not even cast a glance at him. Throwing the wooden chopsticks aside, he picked up a new pair of chopsticks and started to serve Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a look at the aggrieved old Lai as she ate the food which Dmo Xian sent to her mouth and said, "What did you say earlier? Is there something urgent you need me for?" Holding his hand, Lao Lai looked at the noble and elegant Di Zun who was feeding the girl. Then he looked at his swollen hand. They were all humans, but why was there such a huge difference between them? "Pei Sheng is looking for you. He said that today is the first auction of the treasure gathering and he hopes that you can be present," Lao Lai said in an aggrieved tone. Wearing that horrifying old face, he used such an aggrieved tone. Yiqing Luo felt her hair stand on end. She had just shivered. Chapter 3954. Lao Lai immediately stood up straight, his hands hanging on both sides. Yiqing Luo patted Dmo Xian's hand and looked at old Lai. "Pei Sheng intends to hold an auction today?" Old Lai still stood straight. "Yes. This morning Pei Sheng came to invite you, but Lord Di Zun stopped him." Yiqing Luo nodded. "I'll head over after I finish eating." Old Lai took a look at Dmo Xian and his body flashed towards the door. "I've already conveyed the message. I'll go to the treasure gathering exchange first. All of you take your time to eat." His vigorous posture made it impossible to tell that he was an old man over 50 years old. "Eat slowly, there's no hurry." Dmo Xian sent the food to her mouth. "We'll go over later." Yiqing Luo looked at the table full of delicacies. She knew that these were meticulously prepared by Dmo Xian. If she did not savor it properly, she would be letting down Dmo Xian's heart. Over at treasure gathering, even though the auction started in the morning, it will also last until night. She was in no hurry. Therefore, it was already half an hour later before he could comfortably fill his stomach. Yiqing Luo had just stood up and was preparing to head over to the treasures exchange hall with Dmo Xian. Suddenly, a black figure appeared in front of them in a flash. It was a cold-looking man about 25 or 26 years old. His face was solemn and he looked very much like an old cadre. Just one look and Yiqing Luo was able to guess this person's identity. Tang Beiyuan's fiancé, Lang Li Xian. Why is he here? When Dmo Xian saw Lang Li Xian, a sliver of astonishment flashed past his eyes. Lang Li Xian took a look at Yiqing Luo and walked quickly towards Dmo Xian as he whispered something into his ear. Dmo Xian's expression sunk slightly. From the corner of his eyes, he shot a glance at Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo understood and smiled. "If you have something to do, go ahead first." After all, Dmo Xian was an emperor of the imperial palace and his status in the upper realm was not ordinary. Naturally, there were many miscellaneous matters that required his attention. Yiqing Luo wasn't a lady who pestered endlessly. When it was time to act coquettishly, she would do so. Be rational when you need to be rational. Dmo Xian pursed his lips slightly. "The auction? There's still old Lai and the rest at the auction, so I'll head over alone." Yiqing Luo replied. Dmo Xian stretched out his hand and hugged Yiqing Luo as he lowered his head and planted a kiss on her forehead. "I will be back as soon as possible, wait for me tonight." When Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, the man was nowhere to be seen. She looked at the horizon for a long time and sighed. The first auction of the treasure gathering hall was extremely lively. Qiao family had even specially rented a place for Pei Sheng to play around, because of the disruption of the previous auction. The commotion of the treasure gathering auction this time was not much different from the auction fair. The big shots of many forces came to keep watch. It was impossible to tell that before the auction, The treasures gathering trading house was a trading house that no one cared about and had almost closed down. Yiqing Luo didn't want to cause too much of a commotion in case those big shots took turns to chat awkwardly. She specially adjusted her hairstyle and makeup, and also wore a veil to cover her face. Although his aura had weakened quite a bit. But it still couldn't hide her stunning beauty. Yiqing Luo had just walked out of the auction house and was about to enter. Suddenly a number of ladies bumped into her from behind. They were chattering as fragrant powder was scattered all over. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she evaded the lady when she bumped into her. Chapter 3955. The ladies fell onto the ground as they immediately cried out, "Ouch, ouch, ouch." All of them were like weak willows swaying in the wind, swaying their waists as they climbed up from the ground. Following that, they swarmed over to help up the disheveled lady who had fallen right at the bottom. After helping the man up, Zhang Wuji said. A lady who looked extremely pampered stared angrily at Yiqing Luo. "Don't you have eyes? What did you bump into? Can you afford to offend our sacred lady?" Hearing a sharp voice, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but frown as she cast a sidelong glance over. She didn't want to create trouble at the first round of the auction, so she didn't bother about their baffling bumping over. This group of people actually had the cheek to criticize her? Sacred lady? Yiqing Luo's first thought was Qiao families. Qiao Yulu, who had died in the auction. Qiao Yulu had just died not too long ago. Linglong Palace had already arranged for a new sacred lady to arrive at without embroiling city so quickly. The 6 ladies in front of her, all of their looks were considered top-notch and the dresses they were wearing were luxurious and dignified. She could tell that they were all young missies from extremely well-off families. When the ladies saw that Yiqing Luo didn't have any reaction towards their reprimands and even sized them up, they were so infuriated that their faces turned red. "Slut! What are you looking at? Are we people that a lowly person like you can look at directly?" Another lady echoed, "That's right, don't you know what status you have, to actually dare to stand at the entrance of the auction house? Who doesn't know that today is the first round of the auction house and various powerhouses will be there to support us?" A lady covered her mouth as she laughed sarcastically. A lady intentionally standing here in a flirtatious manner? What else could it be for? The few of them looked at Yiqing Luo with eyes filled with ridicule. Yiqing Luo glanced at them indifferently and retracted her gaze, not bothering to bother about this bunch of retards. She lifted her feet and walked towards the auction house. She had just turned around when the ladies behind her rushed up and blocked her path. "Slut! Offending our sacred lady and still trying to escape?" The ladies' faces were filled with ridicule, with a playful smile. Apparently they had treated Yiqing Luo as a toy which could serve as a foil for their status. Enough. A sweet-sounding voice suppressed the mockery of the few people. Soon after, the woman surrounded by the 5 women, the Holy Virgin, slowly walked over. The woman was dressed in a white robe and had a white veil over her face. She looked like an ethereal fairy. Her attire was very similar to Qiao Yulu's. Did she think that, by imitating Qiao Yulu, she would be able to become Qiao Yulu? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly, as she calmly looked at the approaching figure of the woman. The veil hid the impatience on her lips. His half-squinted eyes gave off a sharp feeling. The sharpness of the blade made the woman feel an indescribable chill run through her entire body as she walked over. The lady's willowy brows creased as she suspiciously sized up Yiqing Luo. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't associate that chill with the young girl in front of him. "Saintess, this bitch is obviously a vixen. I think she must have heard that the Overlord would come to the auction today, so she purposely waited here." Chapter 3956. The arrogant lady's voice wasn't considered soft. Yiqing Luo was closer, so she naturally heard what she said. When she heard the words, "Overlord," her brows couldn't help but rose. Did they just say, "Xian?" This lady who was addressed as Sacred Maiden was specially here to meet Xian? It was just a slight change in expression. But it was seen clearly by those ladies. One of the ladies immediately pointed at her and shouted, "Look!" When she heard the Overlord's name, her eyes lit up. "She's indeed here to seduce the Overlord." "Slut! Who do you think you are? The Overlord will only belong to our Sacred Maiden." The arrogant lady ridiculed and was delighted. This bunch of ladies, their mouths were really unforgiving. It was a barrage of words. There wasn't any intention to control their voices. It attracted the attention of the passers-by. This was the first auction of the treasure-gathering hall, and also the last auction of the treasure-gathering hall. Those who came and went were all people with extremely high statuses. It was extremely rare to hear such a scene of people scolding and pestering endlessly on the streets. Originally they didn't want to bother about it. However, when he heard those women calling him His Majesty and Saintess again and again, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This made quite a number of people stop in their tracks as they crowded around. Some powerhouses' big shots recognized those few ladies. Those ladies were all from the Earth realm and were the daughters of the top-ranked large clans. Among the large clans their reputation was extremely good. To be able to make these noble young ladies flock to her. What kind of status did she have? Everyone sized up these few ladies as their eyes were filled with probing. But no one interfered in this matter. Seeing the surrounding big shots crowding around, those ladies didn't feel embarrassed at all. Instead they felt even more interested. Especially that arrogant lady, her chest puffed out even more and her waist straightened even more. The Overlord is still waiting for our sacred maiden to meet up. He doesn't have the leisure to waste time with you here. Saying that, she arrogantly commanded, "Slut, earlier you've offended the sacred maiden. Kneel down and apologize to us and we'll forgive your offense." Yiqing Luo, where did this severely retarded patient come from? Hurry and drag her back. Such a stupid and retarded way. Didn't she feel ashamed? Could it be that he didn't notice? The way the big bosses looked at them was definitely not supportive of their actions, right? Was he retarded or blind? In the face of this kind of trouble with a weak battle, Yiqing Luo didn't even want to bother about him. However, what made her slightly curious was whether the Overlord they were talking about was the same person as her Xian. "Slut, are you scared silly?" The arrogant woman shouted for some time but didn't see any response from Yiqing Luo, so she raised her hand and pushed Yiqing Luo. Just as he moved, his wrist was locked by Yiqing Luo. Crack. The bones in the woman's wrist were broken. The arrogant woman let out a blood-curdling scream and withdrew her hand. "You! How dare you!" Yiqing Luo's action made those complacent ladies' atmosphere congeal as pairs of penetrating eyes stared over. Yiqing Luo took out her handkerchief and wiped her hand which she had touched earlier. Every strand of hair was carefully wiped. It was as if he had touched the plague. Then he threw the handkerchief on the ground. Following that, he raised his head slightly and looked at the few people in front of him. Yiqing Luo's brows were suffused with a faint smile. That smile was very cold. There was a kind of sharp feeling. Every time you catch a person you think he's here for Lord Dizun? Yiqing Luo smiled lightly, the corners of her eyes curved, narrow and mischievous. "So, it's you guys who are feeling guilty." Who's guilty?" The arrogant woman's face turned pale. She held her broken hand and stared at her fiercely. "Our Holy Virgin is here to meet His Majesty." Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. In the eyes of the women, that smile was a mockery and provocation. They were so angry that their eyes turned red. At this moment, suddenly the crowd was filled with lively chatter. "Boss Pei, why are you here personally?" Boss Pei, long time no see. Congratulations." Chapter 3958. As the greetings rang, everyone's gaze immediately shifted from the ladies towards Pei Sheng, who had just walked out of the auction house. Pei Sheng was dressed in a dignified and luxurious ink-black brocade robe today, his hair combed neatly. He looked exactly like a rich young master. His every movement exuded an extraordinary aura and a graceful demeanor. In Yiqing Luo's eyes, it was as though the son whom she had raised had finally grown up. Pei Sheng didn't show any signs of stage fright in front of a group of big shots. With a slight smile, he nodded towards the crowd to express his greeting. That is, the boss of the Treasures Exchange Hall? He looks so handsome. I didn't expect Boss Pei to be so young. He's walking towards us. Those few ladies looked towards Pei Sheng's direction as their eyes were almost glued onto Pei Sheng. The arrogant lady endured the pain as she leaned her body towards the sacred maiden, and after that, she shot a vicious and complacent look at Yiqing Luo. "Did you see that Boss Pei has personally come out to welcome our sacred maiden? You're dead meat." Pei Sheng was indeed walking towards them. His target was very decisive. He crossed the crowd and walked over. The few ladies were so agitated that their faces flushed red. Even the aloof and respectable sacred maiden in the middle had a faint complacent look in her eyes. Did Boss Pei hear about the small fight outside the auction house and specially came over to mediate? He's indeed Boss Pei. He's personally here for such a small matter. He's really responsible. If what that sacred maiden said is true, then that young lady is probably in trouble. Who knows, Boss Pei and Imperial Madam are close friends, and if Sacred Maiden's words were to reach Imperial Madam's ears, Imperial Madam would not let this matter rest. The surrounding big shots were discussing as they watched the show. Pei Xing walked to the front of the ladies. He paused as he took a look at those few coquettish ladies. After that, he was about to walk past them. Suddenly, a figure blocked in front of him. "Boss Pei, I'm so sorry to make you come out personally to fetch me." Pei Xing was blocked. In front of him was a lady dressed in white with a veil. Who was this lady? You don't even know her, why did you fetch her? Even though he was complaining in his heart, he still had to maintain a decent smile on his face. This young lady? I know, His Majesty asked you to come and pick me up, right? The saintess maintained her elegant smile and raised her head slightly, looking very arrogant. Bizun? Pei Xing subconsciously looked towards Yiqing Luo. What and what? If the venerable sovereign were to pick someone up, it would be Luo. What does it have to do with this strange woman? Pei Xing only heard from old Lai that he sensed Yiqing Luo's presence and specially came to the entrance to receive her. He hadn't even reached Yiqing Luo. However, he was stopped by these strange little girls. Whereas Yiqing Luo stood by the side with her arms crossed, enjoying the show. He had not figured out the situation yet. Suddenly, a figure flew towards him. Pei Xing was so frightened that he quickly moved to the side. He saw a woman who had thrown herself at him a little too fiercely. She was unable to stand firmly for a moment and staggered a few times. Fortunately, the woman beside him pulled him back in time. The woman's face was spoiled and her eyes were red as she clutched her wrist and whimpered, "Boss Pei, you have to stand up for us. Look at that slut, she dealt me a vicious hand at your auction's entrance. Look at my hand. It's broken." Chapter 39:59. Pei Xing looked towards the direction which the lady was pointing at. Following that, he met with the young lady's smiling eyes. By his ear, the lady was still crying as she continued, "You don't know, that slut has no right to enter Boss Pei's auction house. She has ulterior motives towards the overlord, intentionally acting coquettishly, trying to seduce the overlord." The arrogant lady pushed the sacred maiden forward again. "This is Shadowless City's sacred maiden, Wuxialover. The reason why Sacred Maiden is here is firstly to take part in Boss Pei's auction, and secondly is to attend the Overlord's appointment." When she mentioned the two words, attend, the arrogant lady intentionally emphasized on her tone. She even looked at Yiqing Luo complacently. "Our Sacred Maiden is not like some people, racking her brains to cling onto a man and sell herself." Shadowless City's Sacred Maiden? Pei Xing's brows creased slightly. With Xiao Yulu in front of him. Towards the Sacred Maiden, two words. Pei Xing felt some disgust in his heart. But she was after all another main city's sacred maiden. He still had to give her some face on the surface. He gave a distant yet polite smile. "So it's Shadowless City's sacred maiden? Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." This was originally just a polite sentence. When that arrogant lady heard that, she took it seriously as the complacent expression on her face became even more obvious. "Sacred Maiden is kind-hearted and will not sue you over such a small matter." Following that, she raised her arm and pointed towards Yiqing Luo as her voice was mixed with viciousness and gnashing her teeth. "But I still need to trouble Boss Pei to deal with this slut who harbors ill intentions towards the Overlord and even offended Sacred Maiden." As she said that, she stared malevolently at Yiqing Luo with a complacent look. "Otherwise, if our Sacred Maiden were to fly into a rage, I believe the consequences. Boss Pei is very clear about it." Pei Xing. He wasn't clear, totally not clear. But he was very clear that if Yiqing Luo were to fly into a rage, the consequences would be extremely horrifying. After she finished acting cool, the arrogant lady looked at Pei Xing with a complacent look. But she discovered that Pei Xing's expression was complicated, totally without any intention to go along with her. The arrogant lady's face sunk as she stomped her feet angrily. "Boss Pei, our sacred maiden is invited by the Overlord. You don't wish for this matter to reach the Overlord's ears, right?" The big shots watching couldn't help but laugh. "She's the young mistress of a prominent clan in Shadowless City, right? If I'm not mistaken, I met her at the banquet in Shadowless City. What kind of family could raise such a moron? Who doesn't know that the Overlord and Lady D are very close? Who doesn't know that Boss Pei is Lady D's friend?" That's right. Chapter 39:60. As expected. When Pei Xing was looking at Yiqing Luo, he saw Yiqing Luo's eyes curling upwards, coquettish, devilish like a blooming poppy. But he could clearly see it. Under the blossoming flames, the hidden sharpness. But these women in front of him apparently didn't know about it. They even attributed the reason why they were in such a predicament to Yiqing Luo. Pei Xing coughed lightly. I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm unable to do anything about your request. As he was saying that, he walked past the few women and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. What do you mean? The arrogant woman retorted angrily. What do you mean by unable to do anything? A lady by the side pulled the arrogant woman's arm. I heard that Boss Pei seems to have a fiancé. Could it be it's... Before the word her could be said, Pei Xing's eyes widened as he interrupted sharply. Don't talk nonsense. I still want to live on. Earlier when old Master Huangfu forcefully put him and Yiqing Luo against each other, it had already caused the overlord to be unhappy with him. Pei Xing didn't dare to hear such words again. Boss Pei. Mu Qiulan raised her head as her beautiful eyes met Pei Xing's gaze. Her voice was calm with a tinge of elegance, but the words that came out from her mouth were filled with ridicule. A lady who uses her looks to serve others can also make Boss Pei helpless. This makes this saintess doubt Boss Pei's ability. She paused slightly and laughed. Her gaze seemed to look towards the direction of the auction venue. Apparently, she was doubting if this auction had any meaning at all. Pei Xing's eyes turned slightly cold as his gaze sunk. But the smile on his lips was even more gentle and polite. He looked at Mu Qiulan as he gave a distant smile. Saintess is right to lecture me. But this lady, even the overlord doesn't dare to touch her, not to mention me. When he said that, instantly the surrounding big shots were in an uproar. Even the overlord didn't dare to touch her? How was that possible? Was there anyone in this world whom the overlord didn't dare to touch? Mu Qiulan didn't expect Pei Xing to reply in this way. When she heard this, her beautiful eyes trembled as she looked in disbelief at that calm and indifferent young lady who was standing there lazily. A thought arose in her mind. The more he thought about it, the more flustered he became. At this moment, a figure squeezed out of the crowd. When the big shots saw that person, they immediately made way for him. Soon after, another figure walked out of the auction hall. It's Patriarch Xiao. There's also the seniors from Hell Palace. Why are they here? It seems like this farce has already spread to the venue. This is going to be interesting. The appearance of Patriarch Xiao and Old Lai caused a huge uproar. The women looked at the two people walking towards them. Then he turned to look at Mu Qiulan and said, Saintess, clan head Xiao and the seniors from the Underworld Palace are here. They will definitely give us. Before the words justice could even come out of his mouth, Patriarch Xiao and Old Lai directly walked past them, stopping right in front of Yiqing Luo and Pei Xing. Brat, I asked you to pick someone up, why are you taking so long? Don't you know it's very busy inside? Lao Lai patted Pei Xing's shoulder. Patriarch Xiao looked at Yiqing Luo. Imperial Madam, you've reached the venue, why don't you go in directly? You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.